Others are females, so that's what we're going to be primarily looking at is the girls. What we'll get feeding while we're out here. Has anyone done this tour before? Just out of interest? Yeah. So, as you probably overheard because we mentioned it as well, but this is a man-made wetland. So it's an artificial structure. It took about 20 years. It was built about 20 years ago, and it did take about 8 years to establish. Initially it was farmland, so back in the day farmers, they used to just house cattle, primarily in paddocks, and they came along, drew up the designs, dug out all these channels, obviously built up the islands, and most of the trees we're seeing were also planted by hand as well, so it was about 12,000 all up by the end of it all. And even though we call them the saltwater or estuarine crocodile, the name is very misleading. This is all fresh water. And it's the same with every other enclosure in the park. The farms are the same, and all the other show and display enclosures are also with fresh water. So the salties, they don't need salt water at all. It's a bit of a common misconception.
Well, they do in
We've had a couple more crocs just up here. There's a bit of a feeding area. Once we get around this first corner here, out of the way of the last boat, we'll get them up nice and close for you, do some feeding. You see that girl just under the water there? There she is. Again, that's the minimum exposure posture, so when they just bump up the top of the head there. And we've got another girl sitting up just amongst those melaleuca roots on the right hand side as well. So they're very, very cool animals. I see a couple moving just over here as well around the corner through the channel. So we've got a good selection to choose from this morning. I reckon we'll feed up just around here. And it's a bit hard to see, but on the left we've got a crocodile basking just up on the opposite bank over there. So that's how they spend the vast majority of their time, especially in the mornings. Early mornings seem to be optimal basking time for the crocs. Getting that early morning sun. If you miss it, don't worry guys, there's plenty of crocodiles. We've got heaps to choose from, which is really good. And then also, there's another crocodile sitting in the shallows just there, right next to those melaleuca roots. Can you see that, sweetheart? Just there, yeah. So she's just got the top of her head above the surface of the water. Just there, in the corner there. So that's the scary thing sometimes about these crocodiles, is it can be quite difficult to spot them. Right. So we do have some tasty chicken heads on offer for these guys this morning.
Chicken heads, not the hot
Now what I'm going to do is I'll start this side guys, but you're not going to miss out, I promise. We'll do this on both sides of the boat. And as I said before, if you want to stand up and move around, you're also more than welcome to do that. Just thinking about it. Always thinking. Oh, look at those nice pearly white teeth, eh? Probably as close as you want to get to one. Oh, I think he's getting a little. I think he might still be a bit cold. Hang on, ready? Come on. What was that, mate? Pathetic. Hey. Nice hear that popping noise. That's something you're going to hear a lot today, not just on the lagoon, but also when we do the other show, especially the 11 o'clock show. Listen out for the popping sounds that they make. See if I can get another one for you.
Oh, that was good.
Cool, eh? Move them around again for you. Come on. Nice popping sound. So when they make that popping sounds, obviously they're closing their mouth very quickly, but it's nice. So that popping sound, we just call it a jaw pop or a jaw slap. It's air displacement. So it's the same when you clap your hands, it makes the exact same sound. So it's not so much the jaws hitting each other or the teeth hitting each other, it's just air being displaced out of the mouth very rapidly. And one of those really cool sound. And big, especially the big boys can do it very loud. We're gonna do plenty of more for you, sweetheart. Sometimes it takes him a little while to engage though. Yeah, that's exactly right. So once we spot a crocodile, usually what I do is I hold the food very low in the water, over the water like that, and they can see it. But also, yeah, see that guy right there? Whoa. So he's coming in.
Okay. Yeah.
But crocodiles have another sense as well that we don't have. They have these pressure receptors, so they're all over the body, but if you look really closer, they're mainly concentrated around the snout. And what those pressure receptors pick up on is this. So vibrations in the water, and that's obviously given off by prey, moving animals, fish, and even animals along the water's edge. Vibrations through the land.
Yeah.
And these guys can utilise that to hunt in, pretty much pitch black. Oh, he knows the game, this fella.
Look at his eyes. Whoa.
Oh, there we go. Try and get one more time.
He really is looking at you. He thinks you look delicious. Whoa, whoa.
Oh, I've lost this one. Oh no. Yeah, oh, he got one. He got one chicken head. But surprisingly, they don't eat that much. For an animal that size, that's a boy by the way, that's a male, he would probably need about a chicken a week. Yeah, I know, surprising, right? Not much at all.
One chicken a week is all they need.
Yeah, about a chicken a week is all they need really, so it's not much at all. And we wouldn't do it, but if we had the opportunity to, we could starve them for 6-7 months without a food, and that would probably do them a bit of good, to be honest with you. All the crocodiles in here are very well fed. There's no underweight crocodiles, and out in the wild that would replicate their diet and their frequency of feeding a lot more naturally. Bigger items, less frequently, especially during the dry season, sometimes going 3 or 4 months without a feed. But obviously the best that we can do in captivity is just small, very small amounts, more frequently. I've got a couple of crocodiles to show you up on the left-hand side here as well. This one's sitting quite far back on land, so it's a bit hard to see at the moment, but as you see him, there we go. And you get a bit of an appreciation for their colour and their pattern. So it does serve as camouflage even on land, which is quite surprising. Yeah, just behind the tree there. So obviously dappled light that the crocodile's sitting in. You can see where they come in and out. Here we go, there he is. And that's a male, that one. He's a young male. His name's Barraboy. He's wild caught. There he is, just through the trees there. He broke into a barra farm several years ago. Yeah, smart crocodile. Yeah, exactly. But unfortunately, he was, it's not sort of frowned upon, especially in the industry. People trying to make money. So he was targeted for removal, and that's what we do with a lot of the rogue males. So every year we usually get a few come into the property. They've either breaking into someone's facility, like a barra farm, or they're taking up residence on a golf course and they're jumping out at golfers. And there's a few dog eaters in here as well from the Port Douglas Cairns region. So crocodiles that have eaten people's dogs, and so they get targeted for removal, brought into captivity. If, however, it's a human fatality, so the crocodile kills somebody, or it's a working dog, so a dog that works is a working dog, and the crocodile eats the working dog, then legislation says we have to shoot the crocodile. So that's the current rules that we abide by. Just over here, about 5-10 metres in from the water's edge, we've got a typical crocodile nest. Huge big mound of soil, big vegetation, all piled up. makes it really easy to find saltwater crocodile nests, especially out in the wild. They're pretty distinctive, and usually you've got belly slide marks going to and from the wallows, so these depressions in the ground that are full of water, and they're usually quite close to the nest. This year I think we've got about 15 nest sites similar to that just in this lagoon, and every year we get about 40 to 60 eggs on average, so yeah, quite a large number. And throughout the whole park, a lot of the communal enclosures are used as breeding for breeders.
Oh my
You got a question, Darren?
right there.
Why is it so big? That's a really good question. That one is actually a lot bigger than you would normally see, but because the female that makes that's in captivity, she uses that same one every year, so she's actually built it up over several years. On average, they're about 1 metre high and about 80 centimetres wide. It's a little bit smaller than that one, but that's all it is. She's just been adding to it. I think sometimes the guys on the farm also help out a bit too. They'll actually scrape up a bit of vegetation for the female as well. Sometimes chuck hay and that type of thing. And essentially what it is just a compost heap. So the female lays the eggs in the middle, vegetation decomposes, of course, gives off heat, and that's what incubates the eggs. So the female doesn't have to, even though she wouldn't, but like a bird, doesn't have to sit on the eggs or anything like that. There she is.
She's good size. She was just having her nose out.
He's coming. He's thinking about it. They're the most dangerous from side to side. That's where they're the quickest. So if I put the food on the side of the mouth, I get a really good response. But I usually lose it as well because they're just too quick for me. She's gone under. She's looking at me now. She's at the front of the boat looking at me. She's looking at the turkey, not the chicken. What? Over this way. Come on. She's disappeared on me. That's all right. We'll get a few more around the corner. I lost a chicken head.
Don't have to work for that one.
No, yeah, exactly right. She's like, oh, yeah, easy. We've actually, swimming, so the speed, if we're talking top speed that's been recorded so far, is about 25 k's an hour. That's fast, but that's in a burst of speed. They're not endurance animals, and they tire pretty quickly. On average, they could probably cruise around at, maybe 10, 15 kilometres an hour if they wanted to. But most of the time, they're just, as we're seeing it in the wild, they're not exerting much energy. They're just slowly, very, very slowly cruising around. So it's only at certain times, and obviously primarily during hunting, that you'll get them at those impressive, bursts of energy. But yeah, 25 k's an hour. For most people, that doesn't really mean anything. So to give you an example, an Olympic swimmer swimming as fast as they can, top speed's about 7 kilometres an hour. So yeah, more than triple the speed they can get up to. It's fast. On land though, if you back far enough and the croc's big enough, you can usually run circles around them. Wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, sorry, darling, you got a question? You can just shout them out.
How big can a crocodile get?
So the biggest species so far recorded is this one here, so the saltwater crocodile. The biggest one that we've reliably measured, so one that's been caught and had a tape measure put on it, was a salty called Lolong from the Philippines back in 2011. He was 6 metres 17 centimetres and he weighed 1,075 kilos. It's a ton of crocodile. That is insane. That is a big crocodile.
That's like the next big boat.
Yeah. That's a big croc, right? Most crocs don't make it that size though. Average male salty about 4 to 5 metres. Yeah. Sorry, did you have another question? Yeah.
How big can babies get?
So babies are very tiny, very tiny. So when they hatch out of the egg to when they're a full-grown adult, it's about 10,000 times the mass increase. So they're huge. Babies are about 25 centimetres long, and they weigh, talking about tens of grams. Very, very light. Very, very light. And they're cute as too. They're very cute, adorable. They think they're hard as nails as soon as they come out of the egg. They squeak at you, and they try and bite you as well. They give you little nips. Goodness me. set that boat on fire, I think, yes. So we don't obviously, I mean, for legal reasons, and I mean, anyone that went on the farm tour.
Green crocodile.
Is it crocodile? A green crocodile.
Oh.
Must be going. Where is he? Goodness me. Ah, there you go. Wow.
Covered in
There you
moss.
go. Look at that, eh? All the moss, and that looks like a lot of duckweed on it too. Get a bit of duckweed in the lagoon here. Goodness me, guys. Well done. Yeah. Got his tail sticking. That's pretty cool, eh? How it blends in like that.
Right there. Went down and had its nose.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's still pretty cool, eh?
There's one right there.
So yeah, even though we, legally we have to collect the eggs, occasionally we miss one or two, and it's funny because you'll be doing these boat tours and you look over and there'll be like a little hatchling crocodile sitting up on the bank. But most of the time we should be collecting the eggs and getting rid of them. It's taken up to the farm, I mean. But in the wild, if we were to let them hatch out, or if we were to let them hatch out in here, what you would see is quite interesting with crocodiles is quite an advanced maternal care, which is unique among reptiles. Crocodiles, the females typically hang around for a few months after the eggs have hatched, and she also sometimes will help them hatch out of the egg as well. So they'll make a chirping noise while the young, while they're hatching out. She'll come along, she'll help dig out the eggs. Occasionally she'll put the eggs in her mouth and gently roll them to help break them out. And then usually she'll carry them down to the water herself as well. So pretty advanced for reptiles. Most reptiles do not display that level of maternal care. They just couldn't care less. Snakes especially, I do a lot of work with snakes. They just dump their eggs. If it's a python, they may coil around it for a little bit, but then once they hatch, it's all over. Maternal care seems not too concerned about their well-being.
One right here on the bank.
Oh yeah, another small little female there. There's also a little one just sitting in the shallows here too. What I'm going to do, guys, is I'll just do a little bit more feeding, and then I'll get you back for that snake show at 10 o'clock. But yeah, it's just interesting, like that's the sort of behaviours that we would see if we left the eggs in here. And the young also form a creche as well, so the young usually come together in groups for protection for a few months sometimes. Can I entice you with one chicken head? I don't know.
You want a video?
Yes. Whoa. He's so
Oh, goodness me, there you go, down the hatch. Not wasting any time, that fella.
Look at his eyeballs. He's just
There
a
we go.
different creature altogether, isn't he?
Alright, so what we're going to do is we'll head on back. Next activity.
Got underneath you.
Snake show. Are there any more questions at all, or anything that you guys would like to know about the crocodile? What's that, sorry? So it's called a saltwater crocodile because it has, in its tongue, it has salt glands. So the salt glands, and a lot of marine animals have these, like marine snakes and other animals, and so as the salt builds up in their system, they can excrete it out of these glands. So crocodiles have them in their tongue, some other animals have it in their nasal cavities and eyes, orbital, like around the orbits, but they just had the most efficient out of any crocodilian, basically. Yeah, so they can excrete salt very efficiently, so that's why they call them salties.
Would the babies survive? Like if they got left to themselves, do the babies survive?
In here, or
in here.
in here, chances are they would have a pretty good survival rate, simply because it's fenced off, it's predator proof. Mostly, you get goannas in here occasionally and that type of thing, predatory birds, but for most of it, there's no pigs and that type of thing. Pigs eat croc eggs and that sort of thing. But in the wild, it's a very, very high mortality rate. All the eggs, so they reckon about 70% of nests don't hatch out because of flooding, overheating, predation, and then the ones that do, current estimates are about one in every few hundred will make it to an actual, like a mature adult male or female. Yeah, it's very, very high mortality rate. Yes, ma'am. Cool, go ahead. Well, it depends. It depends. So, like I said, some nests will be 100% mortality because they get flooded out. some of them might hatch out completely, but then over the the few years as the hatchlings develop and grow, they can get eaten. So it just depends, but it's pretty high mortality rate on one. How much do they eat? It varies. So it varies a lot on temperature and size. So during what we call the dry season, when it's quite cool, these guys might go months without being that interested in food. They still might eat it, but certainly their food, their desire for food seems to take off quite drastically. And one of the longest recorded, times a croc can go without food would be maybe 18 months, so a year and a half.